What does Spoked Z think of the Minnesota Wild's chances to win the Central Division this season, as well as Kirill Kaprizov's extension? We find out on today's episode of Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, and on today's episode, we are going to chat with our friend Spoked Z about the Minnesota Wild, Kirill Kaprizov's extension, chances for some of the younger players for the Minnesota Wild to make the roster, and of course, the secret weapon that the team has waiting in their minor league system, of course, Marat Khusnutdinov. So we have plenty to discuss here today. Thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. And as mentioned, I am your host, Seth Topal, veteran content producer in the Minnesota sports landscape, including exclusively covering your favorite hockey team here in the state of hockey, the Minnesota Wild, over the last couple of years. Happy Thursday to you, joined by friend of the show, Spoked Z, as we will talk some Wild here for today's show. Spoked, what's up?
Yeah, same as always, just living the dream. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good myself. Just grinding through the last little bit of September here as we get close to the we're getting closer and closer to the start of the regular season. So exciting that is in front of us. Just have a few more preseason games to get to, but that'll be wrapped up by the end of next week. And so it's pedal to the metal time for the entire NHL. And honestly, what's not to love about that?
It's crazy. I feel like we literally were just like, I just stopped crying about the Vegas series and now we're ready to like start up again. And like so much has happened, but it feels like it was like 2 weeks ago that we were done. So it's kind of nice. The shortened off season is kind of nice.
Yeah, this has been the ultimate double-edged sword where, it feels like the off season has gone on quite a bit, but at the same time, a couple months and we're right back into it. So very excited for that. Why don't we start by talking about, of course, the big news. The national nightmare is over. Kirill Kaprizov signed his extension, 5 years, $9 million per. Do you like the extension for the Wild and for Kaprizov? Do you think either the team or Kaprizov himself made out better in this deal? What do you think about the biggest extension that the Wild gave out this offseason?
Yeah, they really swept that one under the rug. I didn't even know until like 2 days later. They didn't it wasn't a big thing. It wasn't drawn out or anything. So,
no.
Just a run-of-the-mill contract extension for an RFA. So that was, it was cool. No, that was a real national nightmare for however long. I could care less what they pay him. I could care less how long. I just needed him to sign, and thank Christ that he did, because it was starting to get ugly with people kind of carving him and the agent and Guerin, and it seemed like you had to have one opinion, or you couldn't be like, well, I get why they're not signing it yet, but at the same time, come on. It was like, this mother, and Bill Guerin just saw you cheap ass. Oh my God. So thank God it finally happened. Again, I don't care how long it was. He's here. He's signed for more than 3 years. It's going to be interesting by the end. I think the only 3 other guys signed that long are Eriksson Ek, Brodin, and Spurgeon. So what happens this year if Fiala goes off, puts up 85 points, and Kaprizov puts up 70? Is Fiala well, why am I not going to get $9 million then? So that's the only thing that's interesting about that. But again, I don't care. That's the tomorrow problem. So he's back. It finally is over. We can stop pretending that we have to be bad at Kirill Kaprizov. And it's absolute rock star type stuff that he played less than 60 games, and he now is making $9 million. That is
hard. as negotiations go, that's a job well done. Like,
oh my God, yeah.
You can talk about the tactics that his agent used, Paul Theophanos, but at the end of the day, he got what he wanted. Like, it's a lot of money. And now he has that. And at the age of 29, he's going to be able to go into free agency and get 100 to go along with the 45 that he got with this deal. So honestly,
and like by then that salary cap should hopefully be up a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Like, so I mean, they'll have more room then. And like, I think by that time too, the Suter and Parise buyouts are like down to like less than $1 million each anyways. So like whatever. If it was like, trying to think when, let's see what years is it? If it was literally the year before, then they would have been 2 years before that, they would have been in trouble because they still had 15 million tied up on those buyouts. But so they should have a lot more room by then, combination of that plus the salary cap hopefully going up. But I mean, whatever, dude, I don't even care. I love that he's making so much money and he's here for more than 2 years.
That's going to buy a lot of Mick Goldens. So gotta be happy. So
you can buy Mick Golden if you want to.
All right, he can buy a controlling stake in the Mick Golden company.
Oh God, this kid rocks. I love him.
He's just the best. So
I caught myself getting annoyed, and I was like, nope, no, don't do this. After one season,
I had one day where there was a comment made by, I think it was by Bill Guerin, that just hit me the wrong way. And so I got big mad at my desk at work. And so I fired off like 5 tweets in a row. And then like an hour later, I was like, yeah, I was just mad.
Should have left that one in the drafts, bro.
Yeah, I should have just written those out on paper and then thrown it away. But
by the way, it's probably good that the GM handling this was Bill Guerin, because that's a dude that totally gets it, and he's the last one to react. But like, imagine Kaprizov trying to pull that with like Lamoriello, like, like I can't even imagine how that would go. But like, Bill Guerin honestly is just like, it's insane. Like, he's just always calm, cool, collected. Like, he's just like, I don't know, he just seemed like the right guy to have to like handle this type of negotiation in Minnesota with this player. Like, of all teams and players, like, I'm glad it was Bill Guerin the one running the show.
And I think the best part was the press conference where they announced the extension, how just super low key both of them were. And Kaprizov is like, yeah, I'm not going to the KHL. And Guerin looks at him and is like,
don't say that.
Well, don't play that card. It might come in handy later. It's was handled.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah. Guerin's
he's been through it. Bill Guerin's been through it twice where he's holding out. So like, he's not going to like now hold a grudge. I don't feel like he's the guy that's going to hold it over his head in the future. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it just seems like, all right, it's done. It's all gravy. So like, let's cook.
How about the one other thing that I want to mention, and then we'll move on. How about Kaprizov sneaking into the United States under everybody's nose and just being like, oh yeah, I'm vaccinated and I fully quarantined, so I'm ready to rock.
He needed to do that. Like, if he'd signed and then had to come over and he started missing time, like, then people still would have been like at his throat about it. But like, that was very like, thank God. And none of us knew. So I guess that's where like basically running Russia kind of, comes in handy. You can sneak into the United States of America with like only 2 people knowing. Like, Bill Guerin didn't even know he was here.
Yeah, and like,
or his teammates, no one knew.
The entire contingent of Wild media was just like, "Oh, he's here." And
dude, he probably swam here, watching those. He probably just swam over, watching these workouts.
I didn't do much in terms of working out in the off season, but I swam from Russia, so I think I'm good to go.
I swam from Russia to Florida.
Yeah, like it wasn't
swam
too
through
bad.
The Bermuda Triangle.
Well, in that case, he's scoring 100 goals this year. Like, that effect is real.
Yeah, he might put up 400. I don't know.
Please. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's talk about the Wild roster in general. Some guys that we think could surprise, and also Victor Rask. We'll talk about that and more. Spoke Z joining the show today here on Locked on Wilds. BetOnline.ag is back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back to start another football season. And as always, BetOnline.ag is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline.ag continues to be the number one source for everything football. So head over to betonline.ag on your laptop or mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. That is double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use the promo code NFL100. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. That's betonline.ag, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows, you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all of that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part? There's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Continuing today's episode of Locked On Wild. And again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. We are joined by Spoked Z today with some Wild discussion. Spoked, looking at the roster for the Wild this year, obviously two young names on everybody's mind that could potentially make this opening day roster. I wanted to start, though, with a big change that is starting to kind of become more of a reoccurring thing, especially in practice. It looks as though the Wild may be tweaking their top line and moving Joel Eriksson Ek to that top center spot to play alongside Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. I wanted to get your reaction to that move, if you think it's a good idea. I personally think it could definitely benefit Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov and probably Zuccarello too, because God bless him, but Victor Rask was kind of the odd man out on that line last season. So it looks like the Wild are trying to adjust that a little bit. Do you like the potential of Joel Eriksson Ek to be slotted in as that top line center?
Yes. Thank God. Like, now we can have 82 games of Kaprizov and Zuccarello with not Victor Rask. And like, again, like I hate like dumping on Victor Rask. Like, the dude tries, like, you know what I mean? But like,
yeah,
there were times where it was just like, how many more points could this kid have if he was playing not just in a full season, but like an actual top six center? Like, in the timing is kind of perfect because Eriksson Ek is coming off like a 20-goal season and his best season offensively and probably defensively, honestly. But like, thank God. Like, it's just,
yeah.
And now poor Kevin Fiala is stuck probably with him on the left wing, though. So he has Gaudreau, it looks like. So that'll be interesting to see if that's how it shapes out. Like, but now Kevin Fiala gets to have him on a, because remember it was did they have Hartman go up and play, or did they have Eriksson Ek for a few games and then Victor Rask was right with Fiala, and it was like, oh my God, now it's Fiala that has to like bear this wrath. Like,
yeah. So it was like they tried a couple of different things, but I think the main one they went with was Hartman, especially for the playoffs. I think they went Hartman on top with Kaprizov and Zuccarello, and to his credit, Ryan Hartman, the ultimate pros pro. Like, he is one of those guys that you just love to have on your team because he does everything. And so he hopped up on that top line center spot, and he actually played really well in that series. But then, like you said, it was like, okay, now what happens to Victor Rask? And Kevin Fiala is like, oh, great, I think I know. And sure enough, he's down on Fiala's line, and I don't know. Honestly, I'd like to see the Wild just go for it. Like Bill Guerin to just do it. Bring Boldy and Rossi both up and give them Kevin Fiala. Have that be a line.
Yeah, I would be okay with that for sure. No, but like people forget, and I think maybe at this point saying people forget is just like saying it for the 1,000th time, so no one actually forgets. But Ryan Hartman was like a first round pick, and when he was in Chicago, he had a 19 goal season, and then all of a sudden they send him to Nashville, and then he gets traded again, and then he gets traded 17 times while he's away with no service and no phone in like the woods, and he ends up in Minnesota eventually.
Yeah,
but like he's not like some fourth line plug. He's a guy. He's a versatile player. He can play center. He can play the wing. He works hard. He hits. He plays both ends of the ice. And he signs that really fair contract. So if it ends up being your 1-2 centers or Eriksson Ek and Hartman, yeah, there's a lot better 1-2 combos around the league. But like having that and not overpaying for any of that, like that works too. Like that's totally fine. And I am curious to see what happens with Boldy and Rossi. I just don't know if you can have $4.5 million in Victor Rask or $4 million in Victor Rask like in the press box every night. Like that just seems like a waste of cap space. But at the same time, like we've seen, like it's gonna be hard if Rossi and Boldy both end up in the AHL. I don't think it would be bad for either one of them. Like why throw? I mean, Rossi's a kid that can probably handle like all the pressure in the world, just the type of kid he is and the type of player he is and how he plays. Like probably, but like why like throw him to the wolves this year? Like why do that? It's like a full year in the AHL. Same thing with Boldy, like full year in an actual AHL conference on a really good AHL team with a lot of guys that could make NHL teams around the league. Like that's not a bad thing either. So I'm curious to see how that works out. Like if the only spot in the lineup really open, just with how many contracts they already have, is like your fourth line left wing, I think you're probably more likely to see like Duhaime or Dewar there.
Yeah.
Because like why put Matt Boldy on the ice and on a fourth line and play 11 minutes a night? Like that doesn't really help him at all when he could go down to Iowa and put in 15, 16, 17, 18 minutes, 20 minutes, top power play, and get those good minutes elsewhere. I think that's not going to hurt him at all. And nothing says they can't like get called up. I don't really know how the waiver situation works with them. I have to look at contracts again, but nothing says they can't come up and play. But why have them in the press box or why have them on the fourth line? Either one of them.
And that, that speaks to some of the comments that Bill Guerin has made, in which if they're with the team, they're going to be playing. And so you look even to next year, Victor Rask has this season left at $4 million, and then he's gone. Nick Bjugstad currently signed to a 1-year deal. Maybe back, but if he is back, it's going to be on another vet minimum or close to that. So you go into next year, and you could be looking at a scenario where you have Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, Zuccarello as that top line. And then if you bring up Boldy and Rossi both next year, then you go Fiala, Boldy, Rossi. Your third line then could become Foligno, Hartman, Greenway if they retain him, because he's up after this season. And then your fourth line consists of Nico Sturm and probably Freddie Gaudreau and somebody else. I think next year that gets to be pretty darn good for this team.
I wonder what happens with Jordan Greenway. I mean, Everson's already pissed at him. Like it's been one preseason game and he's pissed. Like he's legit, like he's carving him. And it's like, oh no. Because like, I mean, Jordan Greenway had been frustrating for so long. And then last year he gets off to that hot start and he's a different player, but then the inconsistencies come back, especially after their like COVID delay.
Yeah.
And like the frustrations there. But I mean, it's like, man, you want him to give like that. And I honestly feel uncomfortable when people are like, he's not trying. I'm like, well, I think he's trying. I have a hard time like saying any professional athlete isn't trying out there on the ice.
Right.
But it's just there's some nights where you're like, dude, come on, just a little more. Like, what did you do last night? Like, this is crazy. Like, it drives you nuts because he's one of those kids that does have like that, like, everyone said he has all the tools. He's a big boy, he's tough, he hits, he plays hard, but then there's some nights where like, man, it feels like he's just skating around. So I wonder if he's 24, he's up, he's making 2-1. I wonder what is his actual base, if his base salary, do they want to give him more than, because his qualifier is 2.6. I mean, they don't have to give him 2.6, but why would he take a pay cut?
Right.
Like, do you want to give him $3.5 million? Do you want to do that on a multi-year deal? Or do you think he's like a good trade chip potentially in a deal to go get that center? You know what I mean? Like beyond this year. But like, I love Jordan Greenway, but I wonder what Bill Guerin feels about signing into a long-term deal. Like, what does Jordan Greenway on a 4-year deal look like? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, if they're feeling uncomfortable about giving Kevin Fiala a multi-year deal because they don't know how he'll perform or how hard he'll play, like if he's making $6 million on a 5-year deal, if he's going to get like too comfortable, like you're going to, like, how do you feel about Jordan Greenway making double what he's making now on a multi-year deal? And again, I am not trying to like carve Greenway. It's just the reality of how they look at him now already. And like we've seen it, you know what I mean? So I don't know what his future is. Is that the spot that opens up for Boldy, like a third line left wing? I don't know.
It's intriguing. I'm very intrigued to see kind of how they play that because, as you said, like he could be a second Foligno for this team if you really put it together. And then you have just two absolute like Bash brothers on that line that will just make life miserable for the opposing team. But he just, has 2 good games and then he has 10 games where he just completely disappears. And just with the amount of money that is being just eaten up by buyouts, like they can't afford to have anybody that doesn't like put it all together. So we'll have to see.
It's interesting.
Maybe
it's an interesting spot to be.
Yeah, maybe Marat Khusnutdinov will come up and take that spot. We will finish today's episode of Locked On Wild talking about him, and that comes your way after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning like, is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? Let's be honest, who knows? And why wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? RockAuto.com is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. And RockAuto.com's prices are reliably low for every customer. So head to RockAuto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Make sure to write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at RockAuto.com. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. We are free and available on every platform you listen to podcasts. Seth Topol and Spoke Z finishing things up here today, talking about the secret weapon, the Captain America, whatever you want to call him, whatever superhero analogy you want to use. The Wild have a secret weapon in their prospect ranks that will win them a Stanley Cup the moment he touches the ice. That is, of course, Marat Khusnutdinov. I know you've had a chance to watch a ton of his games and just revel in what has been just an absolute machine on the ice. So for those fans that don't know, and we've talked about him a few times here on Locked On, but it's never enough. It's never enough for this kid. What do Wild fans need to know about Marat Khusnutdinov as he gets closer and closer to making a big impact on this team?
Speed, skill, confidence, plays both sides of the puck. Right now, he's still really young, playing in the KHL. He's either on their first or second power play unit, first or second PK unit. He's everywhere. He comes back after missing, I think, like 6 months when he like tore something in his shoulder. I mean, it was nasty. This dude fell on him, like, and it was actually bad. But he was done for the year after that. Right now, he's playing left wing, but the way he plays, I think I've said this probably on here before, but he's a kid. The way he carries the puck up the ice in transition, he's a playmaker from wherever he is. I think the Wild still look at him as a center. And if you're looking at their center depth now and their prospect pool, in addition to Eriksson Ek, it's pretty good. So I think his contract's up after this year in the KHL, and he's already said on numerous occasions he's coming right over. So it's nice to not have to worry about a Russian kid coming over when he's eligible. That's nice. But he's electric. He is really fun to watch. He tore it up for Russia at the World Juniors last year. He's such a good player, and it's really, he's gonna be, if he's not already, people have already been talking about him as one of the steals of that draft in the second round. So I don't remember if it was him or Ryan O'Rourke who was they took with the pick that they traded Cunnin for. I think it might have been O'Rourke, but either way, he's a player, and I don't think it'll take him too long to adapt to North American ice. So he's someone that people should be very excited about. Just the way he plays it, it's electric. So it's another one in the system, another Judd bracket, just absolute masterpiece of a draft.
Yeah, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the same year as Rossi, right? They went Rossi and then Khusnutdinov after that. Can we just...
That draft for the Wild is... It's... I'm gonna... Because there was other guys too. It was Rossi, O'Rourke, and then they got Damon Hunt. Let's see. Hold on a second. 2020. Nope, that's not what I wanted to click on. It's right here. Okay. Rossi, Khusnutdinov, O'Rourke, Damon Hunt, and Pavel Novak. So those, I mean, they might hit on 5 out of 5. We'll see with Hunt and Novak, but I was surprised. They sent O'Rourke back to juniors the other day. He was really good in the AHL last year. And with the way that, because of the COVID rules or whatever, they had the flexibility to send him back to junior or keep him in the AHL. And he was solid on a really good Iowa team. But I mean, sending him back to juniors isn't going to hurt him.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that Judd Brackett already has done more with his first-round picks in Rossi, Carson Lambos, and Jesper Wallstead than Rick Spielman, all of the Timberwolves GMs that have been in, I can't even name them, and the Twins general manager contingents too. Like, Judd Brackett's already probably the best at it in the state in 2 seasons.
This year's draft, he did. It was some of the kids that they got late. I want to say a couple of them maybe were, I'm trying to remember. A couple of them were either injured or just missed a ton of hockey due to COVID or whatever. Mm-hmm. But a kid like Kyle Masters, it's unbelievable value for a 4th round pick. I really like this Jack Pert kid. They took in the 2nd round. And then Nate Benoit, he's from out here, so shout out Nate Benoit, playing for Mount St. Charles. Just really, I mean, like, we knew when the Wild announced that they had hired Judd Brackett, it was like, oh wow, like that's quite the hire. And then he immediately just went to work. I mean, like, his 2 drafts that he's been in charge of, like, it looks like he may have hit a few home runs with a few. I mean, it's still early, obviously. These kids are 18, 19 years old, but big fan of what he's done so far. And he's really, like, in 2 years, just absolutely bulked up this prospect pool. With a lot of really good prospects that are exciting to watch and fans should be excited about.
It's definitely looking up for the Wild here, especially with how some things have gone with the other pro Minnesota teams here in the state. So we'll take all the happiness that we can get, and they certainly look like they're going to give it to us. So I think that's a good spot to leave it here for today. So as always, Spoked, thank you for joining, and looking forward to having you on more regularly throughout the NHL season when we can actually talk like, here's some big stuff that happened this week. Here's what's coming up this weekend. For fans that didn't see, we've got a whole Twitter thread as to what we have planned for the entirety of the season. So make sure to check that out. Lots of guests joining all week long, every week, all month, everything, all hockey season. Going to be absolutely crazy. So make sure to follow Spoked on Twitter at SpokedZ. It's on the screen for the YouTube crowd, but for the listeners at SpokedZ. And since you have finished your first listen of the day with Locked On Wild, make sure to head over to Locked On NHL to continue to get a look at every team throughout the NHL as we get closer to the start of hockey season. Also, make sure to follow us at Locked On Wilds, wherever you listen to podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. It's literally everywhere. Just hit Locked On Wild in Google and you'll find something. And you can also find new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.